It is that time of the week, time for audience questions. Submit them via voicemail, 219-2-DAVID-P. Just say it's for the Friday audience questions segment, or go to our website, davidpakman.com. Click on Contact Us and send in your question. First one is from Ahea. Should schools teach that all drugs are bad no matter what, even though that's false? I remember, Lewis, the DARE program, drug abuse resistance education, when a police officer would come into our school and he would talk about aliens coming down and offering you drugs, and you're supposed to say no, and drugs are bad, and blah, blah, blah. The dynamic and the understanding around drugs has changed pretty significantly since we were getting that type of education. But I don't know that the education should be that drugs, recreational drugs, are good, although I recognize that just teaching drugs are bad, period, they're illegal, you'll go to jail, that mentality also seems outdated, especially since for some drugs in some states now you actually won't go to jail. So it's interesting that this was asked as a question, because I was thinking about it because I bumped into one of those police officers that we had, Lewis. I don't know. What's your thought on how should drug education change in light of what we are learning about some drugs? We're really talking about marijuana, right? We're learning about the disaster that the war on drugs has been, and we're also seeing legalization in some states.
Right. It's tough. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Should the education be handled the same way as cigarettes? I mean, when we were taught about cigarettes, we were just scared into not smoking, or at least that was the attempt made in our health classes. And of course, with the little alien in the DARE program, I mean, yeah, they tell us about an alien who comes to offer you drugs. But what about when your best friend offers you drugs? You know,
right.
It doesn't make much sense. So, I mean, I think the education certainly needs to change. It's a really hard question to answer, though. I'm just not really sure how you should approach every drug.
Yeah, do you teach each drug differently? The other thing I wonder is, in the same way, and I'm not suggesting this, but I'm just curious about it, some mostly religious individuals only want abstinence, only sex education being taught to their children, and they don't want the school doing it at all, right? They want to handle that at home exclusively. Is there a case to be made for not teaching about drugs at all in school? I asked the question. My view is that not really, because when you teach science, when you teach history, in so many different places, there are opportunities where the topic of drugs, either pharmaceutical drugs or recreational drugs or illicit drugs, it's going to come up. And if the idea is that all of a sudden now it's off limits, I think that that's going to create problems. But I wonder if there are people that, not because they have a very conservative view on drugs, but maybe because they have a very liberal view on drugs, want to handle the teaching around drugs themselves in the home. I don't know. I don't know if that group exists.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to leave it to the parents and to keep it out of schools. I think it does need to be taught. I think I'm not really sure how, unfortunately, but definitely it does need to be taught to students to some extent, all drugs in schools.